Kakayaka Hawaii. This is Pokalai Nui, and you are listening to Hawaiian Potpourri. Welcome to the program. Thank you for joining me. We are produced by the Hawaiian National Broadcast Corporation. We are broadcasting at the top of the Chinese Cultural Plaza here in Honolulu, Hawaii. Today is the second day of September, and it's about 8 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock. Good morning. The rain seems to be increasing out over Honolulu. As I said, I am at the top of the Chinese Cultural Plaza, and from as far as I can see, Honolulu as a city is covered with clouds. So it seems like it's going to be a wet day this day. Last night we had a discussion on many issues, and we focused on the essentially a comparison between the Republicans and the Democrats, and at least perhaps the extremes of the Republicans, as we saw in the in the Republican National Convention that just occurred. Did you know that Linda Lingle did not attend the convention, and it seems like part of her strategy to win the Hawaii election to get into the U.S. Senate, trying to somewhat distance herself from the Republican Party, or that extreme side of the Republican Party, which would be exposing itself over the period of that convention. We can perhaps talk about that a little later, and what was the significance of her absenting herself from the party convention. And of course, you know that she had been, in essence, the titular head of the Republican Party during her administration, and continued to maintain that leadership role in the Republican Party. Very interestingly, her claim that she can work with both parties, the Republicans and the Democrats, one of her Republican members, and also very leading in the party itself, and that was John Carroll, decided to support the Democratic candidate, Mazie Hirono, endorsing her instead of Linda Lingle. And so it's very interesting to see the jumping across party lines. Subsequent to that, the Republican Party leadership in Hawaii, I guess including Linda Lingle, has declared that John Carroll would not be supported anymore by the Republican Party. And Carroll said something about, I won't be holding my breath. I'm already, 7, 8 years old, I think he is. And he says, don't worry about my political career. I'll worry about that myself. But he has disassociated himself with the Linda Lingle campaign. Linda Lingle seems to have disassociated her public appearance with the Republican Party. I don't know if she is as closely associated with Sarah Palin, who also was not very prominent at the Republican National Convention. Is it that the party is going so far to the right that they don't want to be so associated? Or is it just that in their particular campaigns, not Sarah Palin, but Linda Lingle, she recognizes that Hawaii is most likely going to vote with Barack Obama, and she does not want to get tagged with the sort of the backwash of that event and be affected by it. So by disassociating herself as much as possible with the Republican Party, that is her route to hopefully for her election to the U.S. Senate. She declares that she is able to work with Democrats and Republicans and has proven that during her governor's administration. Of course, she had no choice because the state legislature was completely and continues to be completely controlled by the Democratic Party. Even at that, in that sense, Lingo tried to circumvent a lot of the rules and appropriateness as she governed Hawaii for those 8 years, and left the state in essence a destroyed state. Not only is Neil Abercrombie complaining about just the basic information that they had as they took over the state, finding out that the state was even in worse condition than as represented by the Lingo administration. The Department of Health, especially the Mental Health Division, has been left in shambles and still at this point has not been adequately restored. They tried to end run the legislature by creating a special corps, and they called it the corps, a group of people from the Lingo administration who invested themselves in a special contract, or they were just about to engage in this special contract in which they took much of the powers of control over the behavioral health issues and collected it for themselves. It was led by Michelle Hill and also joined in by several of her compatriots in the Department of Health. The legislature finally caught up to that, found out what was going on, this end run around the legislature, and has stopped that foolishness. And Michelle Hill is no longer associated with the Department of Health anymore. This was all during the administration of Dr. Fukino, who is again no longer associated with the Department of Health. So a new administration there has taken over, and yet the bureaucracy that was left in there, and I assume many of them are civil service employees, are still left and ingrained in that system. So it takes a time to turn things around, and I'm not happy about it by the lack of turning around, but I do see some movement in that direction. If you have any comments or any critique to my critique, you are welcome to call. Our telephone number here is 524-1080, and I'll give you a chance to share your opinions and join in conversation with myself on some of these issues. Okay, time now is 16 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock, and I have been sort of reviewing some of the items that we have talked about last night, and giving you an opportunity to catch up and to join in this conversation, and then we'll continue on with other issues that seems to be circulating here in Hawaii and around the world. One of our callers last night developed, or I think from a number of the various callers, we are developing sort of a checklist to see how a party falls, the Democrats and the Republicans fall along this checklist. And among those checklists, let's see if I can start out with claims of, let's see. First, dealing with the national debt and ways of resolving the national debt. Now, both parties are saying we need to address the national debt. The Democrats are saying that as we reduce spending, we also have to increase revenues. And so we can look at a reduction of spendings, and we have to be very careful on what we reduce, but we also in the meantime need to increase revenues, and the increase in revenues has to be by increasing taxes. The Republicans are essentially saying, no, we can reduce debts, we can reduce spendings, and we don't need to increase revenues. It's the same mentality of we can conduct a war, we can go through what was that other crisis? I think it was a financial crisis, and we can reduce taxation all at the same time. And we have seen, and we continue to see, the stupidity of that policy. Well, that policy is in essence still being followed by the Republican Party, or the leadership in the Republican Party. Questionable whether or not the rank and file in the Republican Party are still holding on to that kind of thinking. And I think what is happening is that not only will the Republican Party lose the upcoming election, but they will begin to lose members within that party because of that kind of essentially foolish economic thinking. The Democrats are saying, yes, we can reduce spending. We also need to increase revenues, and that is that we need to increase taxes on especially those people who are getting away, the people $250,000 and higher. We need to increase their taxes. And so that is where the major differences in terms of fiscal policy is occurring. The second issue dealing with social support, the Democrats are saying let's preserve Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. The Republicans are saying cut. Let's put out vouchers and let the individual move to wherever he can find an insurance company, and the vouchers that we give, they can purchase new policies from private businesses. Private businesses are more effective in operating these systems than a government-operated system. Democrats are saying in response, well, what you will then do is simply take away the safety net, because there will be a lot of people who cannot take the vouchers, or $8,000 essentially, or approximately $8,000, and go to other insurance companies and still get insurance, because the insurance companies will not insure some of those folks who especially are the ones who need this insurance. And so you have the difference there with regards to vouchers for insurance. Vouchers also apply with regards to education. The Republicans are saying that you should give these vouchers to students and let them choose whatever schools they wanted to go to, which includes private schools, which includes parochial schools. The Democrats are saying you cannot use vouchers as a substitute for public education. You need to support the public education system, so that even though, and the vouchers are not going to be paying 100% for this private education, so there will be those with however many thousands of dollars per child per year, but they will not be able to afford good schools that you hope they will get in private schools. So what you will have eventually is a separation of the quality of education across the masses of America. The Democrats are saying, no, let's provide a baseline of public education, free public education. If anyone wants to go to a private school, then they can go ahead and elect themselves to go to the private schools and pay for it themselves, and not get the government to pay for private education. So those are some of the differences between the Democrats and the Republicans with regards to labor unions. Essentially, the Republicans are trying to break the backs of the labor unions, and the Democrats are generally supportive of labor unions. With regards to, let's see, I couldn't read made my own writing with regards to a pipeline, developing a pipeline to carry oil from Canada and perhaps even Alaska, bringing it down all the way down to Texas. The Republicans supported, talking about the increase in jobs. The Democrats are generally against it, being very concerned about the environment and the impact on the environment. So environmentally, you can say that the Democrats are far more concerned about it than the Republicans. You have some Republican in leadership who deny the very credibility of, what is it called, global warming. And the Democrats are essentially believers in this idea of global warming, especially now in the United States with the weather patterns being changed so drastically and the hot season being so terrible in this 2012 period. There were about maybe two similar periods within the last 10, maybe 30 years. In the 2008, I think you had another very bad weather condition, and there was a more current or recent statement about the admission of the factuality or the truth of global warming. So that's how it's split between the Democrats and the Republicans. With regards to women's rights, the Republicans are generally against, and the Democrats are in support of women's rights as regards their own body and making their determination of whether or not, for example, to terminate a pregnancy or not to terminate such a pregnancy. The Republicans have recently included in their platform statement that there should be absolutely no abortion, even in the case of a woman being raped. And somehow they spoke out against Atkins, was it, or Atkins? Senatorial candidate who said that a woman's body will automatically reject legitimate rape, and so it's not something that you need to provide, what do you call it, an abortion for. Now, many of the Republicans jumped at him and condemned him and asked him to drop out of the race, and he has refused. And yet you see in the Republican platform, they have essentially adopted his underlying statement. So to what extent was this all a shibai, and to what extent do they really support Atkins' statement? With regards to rights of self-determination, especially as it applies to gays and lesbians, the Republicans are against that and are against unions of gays and lesbians or marriages of gays and lesbians, and the Democrats are in support of it. So they're far more liberal in terms of what they consider to be human rights. With regards to military, that now we get into a more phasey question or difficult to determine. With regards to the U.S. military and its foreign interventions in other lands, the Republicans are very much in favor of it, and you have seen that demonstrated in the George Bush era and how the Republicans were so willing to go ahead with that kind of stupidity. The difficulty in terms of dividing that issue among Democrats and Republicans is that many Democrats are still in support of that kind of stupidity and went along with the Republicans. You see in the recent election or the recent nomination for the Hawaii senatorial candidate on the Democrat side, Ed Case, supported the war in Iraq and in Afghanistan, and there were other Democrats who also supported the war. But today I would suggest that the Democrats are more against that kind of stuff, and you can see from Obama's direction or redirection of the war, it is one of extracting U.S. forces out of Afghanistan and have extracted U.S. forces, or most of them, out of Iraq. So there's some uncertainty, but generally it's in the opposite direction of the Republicans. With regards to the Patriot Act, the Republicans are in full support of the Patriot Act. Democrats have a tendency to support, and yet there is at least room for disagreement, and there are others who are against the Patriot Act. And many of them is saying that it's not a patriotic act. It's something to the contrary, because it is really striking down of the freedoms within the United States, so that were supposed to be guaranteed to the United States. And what about U.S. citizens and the treatment of U.S. citizens? In terms of the human rights overview, in terms of COINTELPRO, you have Republicans who are very much anti-citizenship protection. They are willing to invade the privacy of individuals. They are willing to invade the rights of citizenship, especially as it deals with with the so-called terrorist activities, and just the second guessing that so and so is probably a terrorist. So let's go ahead and kill them using our drones or whatever other methods may be used by the CIA. The Democrats, at least you have a discussion there. Unfortunately, it appears that Barack Obama seems to be more of a Republican whenever you're dealing with those particular issues. Equitable tax schedule, a progressive tax schedule. The Republicans are against it, and they are against any taxation, and the Democrats are in favor of it. Okay, so I've given you sort of a litmus test, if I may call it that, of the differences between Democrats and Republicans, and you probably will line up, and of course you will line up in whatever way you wish to. If you think my listing is incorrect, or you want to add anything else, you are free to call me. Before getting into that telephone call, let's go to some music.
Kaulana na pua o Hawaii, Kupa ama hope o ka aina, Iki mai ka elele o ka loko ino, Pala pala anunu me ka paka. Pane mai Hawaii moku o ke ave, Koku ana honoa o Pilani, Ka ko'o mai kaua I o mano, Pa'apu me ke oni o ka puhi hewa. Aolea e kau I ka pulima, Maluna o ka pepa o ka enemi, Po'ohui ai nā ku ai hewa, I ka pono sivila a o ke kanā.